Hi everyone, and welcome to another installment of the Mohawk RIC Summer Professional Development Series. I'm Chris Schaefer with the Mohawk Model Schools team, and before we get started with today's session, I just wanted to give you a brief overview of some of our upcoming sessions for the rest of the summer. So the first group of sessions I'd like to talk to you about are some of the live sessions that will be delivered just like the session you're watching today via the Mohawk YouTube channel. The first of these sessions is digital badging, which will be delivered on August 18th at 1 p.m. The next session is leveraging Nearpod in the classroom, August 21st at 10 a.m. And finally, creating a virtual classroom with Google Sites, which will be on August 24th at 10 a.m. The next set of sessions we have to talk about are virtual meetings, which will be delivered in a platform like Google Meet, WebEx, or Zoom. Some of those coming up include motivating students in an online environment on July 30th at 10 a.m. Maximizing virtual manipulatives in elementary mathematics on August 4th. And finally, the last group of sessions we have are fully online courses. We only have one remaining for this summer, and that's going to start on August 11th, and it's going to be on the topic of Google Sites more than a website. If you'd like to sign up for any of these sessions, remember you can always just go to mohawk.org/pd to look at the calendar and sign up there. Now let's jump right in. Alright, so before we get started, I do just want to remind everybody that if you are watching live on YouTube, make sure you go to the chat just to the right side of the live video and enter your name so that you can be recorded for attendance for today's session. Obviously, today's session, if you registered for today, is Hacking G Suite with the Explore tool. Basically, what the Explore tool is a way to combine different functions of a Google account into the different apps that you'll be using, primarily being Docs, Sheets, and Slides. So we're going to dive into each of those tools today and talk about how each of them works with the Explore tool, because it actually works differently within each app. So let's go ahead. So I'm going to go ahead and start talking about the Explore tool within Google Docs. Now, many of you are familiar with Google Docs, the features of Docs, how to create Google Docs, share them, work collaboratively. It's a wonderful tool to use with students and with your colleagues as well. But hopefully what I'm going to show you here with the Explore tool can really expand some of the uses that you can see how this fits into your classroom. So first of all, I just want to point out that all I have here is a very basic Google Doc. I have some text in a numbered list on the screen. I have a bulleted list down below with just some sources that you guys can use after the fact. I'm going to link these to the description of the video below, so check that out. And then I have a quick article from the Channel 9 website in Syracuse that I'll talk about in a minute. So nothing special here, it's just a regular Google Doc with some text on it, a couple links, nothing fancy. Now, the power of the Explore tool in Google Docs is kind of multifold. So the first thing it does, and this is going to kind of go through numbers 1 through 5 here at the top. The first thing it does is it gives you quick access recommendations. Now, quick access you may have already seen back in Google Drive. What that does is every time you come into Google Drive, there's an AI running in Google Drive that scans all your recent activity in Google Drive. It scans your Google Calendar, and if you're using Gmail, it looks at Gmail to see all of the things that you've been doing recently and things that you may have coming up in an appointment in the near future. And what it does is it recommends items that may be pertinent to those specific calendar appointments or docs that you've opened recently. Now, the Explore tool here within this Google Doc has a similar feature. So if I go ahead and click Explore, it opens up a side toolbar over here on the right-hand side of the screen. And what this does is it looks at all of the text on my document, scans it, and looks for some things that I may want to know about based on what it sees in the doc. So it's giving me quick access recommendations based on what it sees. So first of all, the article that I have here is about the City of Syracuse School District and the reopening plans for the fall. So what it does is it sees all of some key terms within the document and it puts them here, and it gives you a little note beneath that of why it's recommending this. So distance education is recommended because I wrote about it with the text that I copied into the page. So any of these you can click on to get more information, and it does a web search and it gives you some items from the web, some websites that you could then go ahead and open up. It just opens a new tab just like you did a Google search, but now it's built right within Google Docs. So think about students and their use of Google Docs. Say you give them a project where they have to do a little bit of research to gather information. Traditionally, they would go into their browser, they would go to Google, and they would type in a search term. So let's say I want to know about school reopening plans. And that gives me some very generic items that are from the entire internet, and it gives me obviously all of the main Google search features where I can look at news articles, images, videos, and it gives me a bunch of links that I can look into. If I use the Explore tool in Docs, it works a little bit differently in that any results that you get here have a couple of different features that are really handy. So the first thing is that I do want to point out is you will see Wikipedia is included in these searches. So some teachers don't like the use of Wikipedia, so this would just be something you'd have to talk to your students about and say, even if you get a search result for Wikipedia, please don't use that within your document. However, let's say I go down to my second item in my list here, this website that I already opened in my other tab, so I'll go there. Let's say I find this to be a viable resource. I pull some information out of it as a student and I want to use that in my doc. So now when I'm in my doc, let's say, for example, this sentence came out of that resource. I can put my cursor at the end of the sentence, and using the Explore tool, when I hover over the site that I used, I now get these little quotation marks over that site, and I can cite it using a footnote right within my doc. Now, different teachers have different formats they like the citations done in. So if you do click up at the top next to Web Results, the More menu, you can select the different format that you would like to use in your classroom. I'll leave mine as MLA. I'll click on the citation, and right where my cursor is after groups, it's going to add a citation footnote, and at the bottom it automatically cites using the MLA format for the article that I found on the web. It's a really powerful research tool that will save a lot of time for students if they use this instead of just doing a Google search, and then maybe they have to open up a website just to show them how to cite the website that they found information from. Now it just does all of it built right within Google Docs, which is great. The next thing that you'll notice is, let's say I'm done looking at different websites, the Explore tool in Docs also opens up an Images tab. And what this does is it does a Google image search based on the topic that you've searched on. So in this case, it's distance education. I could just say school for this example. Now, the advantage of using this image search within the Explore tool of Docs, rather than going out to Google and saying, I want to look for school, and go to images, is that the images you get on a regular Google search cover all different levels of copyright claims on those images. So it could be something that's totally Creative Commons, totally open for reuse, or the very next image could be something that's actually copyrighted, and if a student were to use it and then publish their work, they could actually be facing a copyright claim against the image that was used in their article. The Explore tool within Docs, on the other hand, any image search that you do here, the images that it finds are not only is a student allowed to use the image in terms of its copyright level, but it's also an image that's been marked for being able to be edited within the document. So they can then, if they ever wanted to, they could take that image, crop it, add some highlighting or annotation on it, and use that within their doc. So let's just say, for example, and I'm going to go to the bottom of my document here, I want to put an image here within the doc. I've done a search for school. Let's say I like this second image where they're at the carpet for story time. All I have to do is go in here and click Insert Image, and wherever my cursor was, it puts that image right within my doc. So now, if I click on it, it actually shows me where that image came from. So it was from a Commons website, Wikimedia, and it actually links out to the site as well. So students don't have to worry about, again, taking the time to create a citation for the image they use. It's built right into the image within Google Docs. So this is kind of the next level of the power of working in an online collaborative environment. Now it's just embedding data within the document for them that they didn't even have to create themselves. And that's a real time saver as students really start to do a lot of research and putting that research into documents. The last thing it does here within the Explore menu is it lets you search for your drive. So I've done a search for school again, and anything in my drive that it relates to the search term or includes the term school will show up here in the list. So there's a bunch of different things that appear here. Let's just use this one. Let me go down again to the bottom of my document. You can take any of these and you can open them up so that you can see them separately of your document. And then you can take that resource and take information out of it and put it into your doc. So in my next tab, I have that document here. I could copy any of this text and I could put it here at the bottom of my doc or wherever I needed it. And I could then easily access other documents from my drive right within Docs instead of having to go back in another tab to Drive, search for a document, find it, then take the information out of it. Now it's built right into the interface. So it's a real time saver for students. A couple of resources I want to point out for the use of the Explore tool specifically within Google Docs. Shake Up Learning is a blog that I really recommend for anything you're doing within Google. They have a lot of resources that you could reference and would really help you in a lot of different ways. But specifically for this Explore tool and using it in Google Docs, they have a great blog post about it and the main ways that you can use the Explore tool within Docs. Another one is Ditch That Textbook. Again, another blog where they talk about the different uses of the Explore tool within Google and how that works for both teachers and students. And then finally, the third resource is TechnoKids blog. Again, another blog that talks about the Explore tool specifically within G Suite for Education. All of these, again, I'll make sure are in the description of the video below, so feel free to check those out. The next G Suite app that you'll want to look at when you're talking about the Explore tool is Google Slides. Now, Slides is a great presentation tool. Again, I'm sure a lot of you are really familiar with it, have used it, even your students have probably used it. But this Explore tool has a couple of functions within Slides that I think you'll find really useful, not only yourself, but also, again, for your students as they start to possibly build presentations that they have to present themselves. So here, again, I have an example of a Slides presentation. It's very simple. It only has 3 slides in it right now. It's very simple topic, so nothing crazy here. I have the first slide is just, if I go into the new slides, it's the title slide of this blank presentation. It's the default for any new presentation that you create. And it's very simple. It's actually rather boring. However, let's say I'm in a hurry and I either don't have a lot of time or don't want to spend a lot of time customizing the look of my slides, but I really want it to look kind of professional. The Explore tool within Slides will help me with that. So if I go down and click the Explore button, again, that side menu pops up, and what it does is it recommends some different layouts for this slide. So if I decide that I like one of these, Let's say I like this one with the circle. Simply click on it and it applies that layout to the slide that I was working on. The nice thing is it doesn't apply to the entire slide deck, so you can format the different slides with different layouts as you go through. You're not locked into one of these for the entire slideshow. So this again can be really handy if you don't have time or don't want to take the time to customize your slides, but you want that kind of professional look. The way it works is it actually looks at the items you've put on the slide. So I only had text, and what it did is it looked at different layouts that would work with just two different text elements. I have a bolded one and a smaller one. Now if I go to a different slide, this one has a picture. The layouts on the right that you'll see are different this time because it noticed I have a picture. So here you can see it gives me a few different layout options. I like this kind of picture frame look. I'm going to go with that. And then lastly, we have a slide with a little bit of text and then a bulleted list. And again, I get a totally different set of layouts that would work with those elements. So it's dynamic based on what you have on the slide. So my recommendation is if you want to use this feature, build your slides first, get all of the content in place, and then come back through to each slide, open the Explore toolbar, and pick a layout that works for you. Another way that Explore works within slides that you may find useful is you can take a search term within the Explore toolbar on the right, and let's say I just want to use dogs. And what it does is, again, just like it did in Docs, does a web search. So now it gives me some resources that I could then go out to and pull information from for my slide deck. The one big difference that I wish they would add, but they have not yet, please Google add this, is the citation feature. So in Docs, you can click on the Cite button and it pops a footnote in. It does not do that here in Slides, unfortunately, so your students would have to then manually do their citations. Kind of a small thing. It's good that they're still practicing building citations, but it would be nice to have built into the tool. It does also have an image search. So I did a search for dogs. It pulls up Google Images for dogs. Again, all of the images that come up with an Explore tool, again, are the copyright friendly for not only using them, but also for modifying them if you wanted to as well. And then finally, it does the same feature where it lets me look within my Google Drive for other items that relate to the search term dogs. The last G Suite app I'm going to tell you about with the Explore tool is Google Sheets. Now, Google Sheets is like the Google equivalent of Microsoft Excel. If you've never used it, it does almost all of the same things that the full version of Microsoft Excel does, where you can, like you see on the screen here, I've taken a bunch of data, I've put it into different columns, and the columns have headers, and all of that information is a nice table, easy to build. All you have to do is type in that text. It does have different formatting, so if you're doing things like these last two columns are monetary values, you can set that text to actually be money, and it would have the dollar signs in there and everything. So it's very high functioning. You can do formulas, you can do a bunch of different tables off of the data, but the intimidating part of Excel has always been knowing how to use those features. Well, what they've done with the Explore tool within Google Sheets is they've actually made the Explore tool kind of like a cheat sheet to do all the different functions you may need to for data within a Sheets doc. So if I open up the Explore tool here within Sheets, again, opens up the Explore menu on the right hand side of the screen. But now what this does is it looks at the data that you have on your screen. So in my case, it's in cell A1, the first one up here, down to column G, row 44. So that's my entire table. And what it does is it lets me do a couple different things. The first thing is you can format this. So I can make it alternate the colors between the rows, which is kind of a minor change, but visually sometimes that really helps when you're looking at a lot of data. It also will give you some basic information about the data that you have in your sheet. So This pivot table basically looks at the different reps that we have and looks at how many average units they've sold. So that's a nice table for, say, a manager in this case to have. They could quickly take this, and using this button up here, they can insert the pivot table right into their doc. Now what they can do is they can put it on a sheet that's already there, or create a new sheet at the bottom. I'm going to do that here. And so it calls it pivot table 1, and it gives me that data in a nice table that kind of summarizes the larger set of data that I had in my entire data set. Now, I don't know personally how to create pivot tables using sheets without doing a Google search and looking that up, but the Explore tool kind of lets me quickly figure out some of that information. So I can highlight my data again, and now I can go back through. So now I can look at different ways that it's analyzed the data. But one of the other things it does that's really cool, and I think this is the real powerful, most powerful feature of this, is you can ask questions about the data you have on here. So some sample searches that you may have would be, what's the lowest unit cost? So if I click on that, it's going to give me the lowest unit cost was $1.29. And if I'm a student that wants to know how it did that, say I want to be a programmer, I want to learn about Excel and Sheets, I can click See Formula, and it gives me what that formula looks like for that question that I gave it. Now I can click Delete, go back here. Let's say I want to compare the average units for the East and Central for different regions. So if I do that, now it gives me, again, some options where I can look at different charts. So I can look at different columns, scatter, and pie charts. Or I can, again, look at the data, and I can see what the formula was they used. Now, to me, again, as a novice Excel and Sheets user, this would be probably nearly impossible for me to figure out. But just by asking a quick question or selecting one of the questions that they have predefined, I've then taken the data I've created and gotten more interesting results out of it or analysis out of it. Now, again, not every teacher or student is going to use Sheets, so this may never impact you, but it's nice to know that they've done the work for you, and using the Explore tool, you can quickly analyze your data to get more refined searches and more refined charts and graphs out of what you have there. So that about does it for today's presentation using the Explore tool within G Suite. Now, if you have any questions, I will make sure to hang out in the chat for a few minutes. Feel free to pose those there. Or you can always email me. My email is cschaefer@moork.org. I'm happy to respond to any questions you might have, give you some advice if you're running into any issues. Feel free to reach out. Otherwise, don't forget, if you want to sign up for any other sessions for the rest of the summer, just head on over to moork.org/pd and feel free to check out the sessions we have there. Thanks so much for attending.